I remember back April 2020, when Georgia ended the lockdown. We were all going to die.
It was an
by
experiment
May
in
2020.
mass. What was it? I'm trying to remember. The Atlantic had a headline that was very specific. It was like an experiment in mass murder or something. Like, it was really aggressive
it was
headline.
Extremely extra.
We were fine. Like, it did not result in massive spikes that were uncontrollable. It didn't result in hospitals being overwhelmed. Like, it didn't, like, if you look today back on any of that stuff, you will see that what happened here was what happened basically everywhere else on a fairly consistent sort of wave cycle, right? Like we opened up, there were waves, there were peaks and valleys, the whole thing like everything else. And then those same things happen in California, and those same things happen in New York, and those same things happen in DC. And it wasn't like this radical, oh no, like we did a different thing and then suddenly the world ended. Like, we did a different thing and then, like, it was fine, pretty much, And yeah, I found that all to be really interesting too, because especially moving outside of the city, because Atlanta itself still has a lot of people who are very concerned about stuff and who are very sort of in that mode, But, I live outside of Atlanta now, and I don't see as many people being super neurotic about a lot of that stuff. And yet, similarly, where I live there's no problem. Like, there's just no problem. The problems are, as Paul mentioned before, they're self-inflicted. The problems that we have are problems of like supply of various goods and services. The problems are lumber is $12 a board, of 2x4 right now. Like, that's something I'm acutely feeling right now, because I just bought a bunch of them this weekend, and like, that is unpleasant in a world where, like, a couple years ago it would have been $3, and it's just like, it's pretty wild when you're like, okay, I want to build a house. And then also, look, we talk about, like, home prices are way up, and prices for rent are way up, prices for used cars. I mean, we started this conversation talking about Paul trying to get a minivan. Like, you can barely get cars. You can barely get used cars. The used car market. A friend told me the other day that, like, used cars, for the first time I've ever heard of, are selling several $1,000s above MSRP for new cars right now.
And also office and warehouse space, which I am currently acutely aware of.
You're looking for more?
Well, my husband and I are inching ever closer to opening our own business. We may have found a location, but it's just, even finding the available space is crazy making. And when you have the core components to just, like, making stuff, like steel or lumber.
Yep.
So much more difficult to get a hold of, and therefore so much more expensive. And let's not talk about, like, this is not even counting the double-digit tariffs on a lot of these things. Of course people are having trouble finding these things. Of course people are having trouble affording these things. What on earth did you think was going to happen? But the problem is they didn't really think about what was going to happen. So
yeah, no, we weren't even allowed to debate it. I mean, it was like completely cut off from any kind of.
And anybody who brought it up was a conspiracy theorist. Get out of here, crazy person.
Or flat out blocked on social media. I mean, it's
my gosh,
it's pretty wild.